we begin on Capitol Hill, where tempers are flaring and where, in the search for an off-ramp from the plan that's escalating in week 5 of the government shutdown, there is arguably good news and bad news. So, the good. Theoretically, a rare move toward bipartisanship. 30 senators have now signed on to Republican Josh Hawley's bill to fund SNAP, the food stamps program that lapses in just 2 days. 15 Republicans and 15 Democrats, if you include 2 independents who caucus with the Dems. And that support is growing. The bad news? It's not clear it would pass. And anyway, Republican leaders won't give it a vote. So those growing tensions are playing out on the Senate floor, where Majority Leader John Thune demanded Democrats just reopen the government in a spontaneous, heated debate with Democratic Senator Ben Ray Luján.
This pain does not need to happen. President Trump is choosing to inflict pain on American families by holding meals hostage.
The senator from New Mexico was absolutely right. SNAP recipients shouldn't go without food. People should be getting paid in this country. And we've tried to do that 13 times. And you voted no 13 times. This isn't a political game. These are real people's lives that we're talking about.
I understand the words that were being used today to spin an argument as to why there should be justification for 40 million people to go hungry.
Joining us now, the man in the middle of that, Democratic Senator of New Mexico, Ben Ray Luján. Senator, it's great to have you here. That got a lot of play. So let me ask you this. He says it's your fault. Do Democrats share at least part of the blame here?
Well, look, when it comes to food programs in America, there has never been a moment in America's history that food programs have lapsed. Just look to the last shutdown under President Donald Trump. President Donald Trump and his Secretary of Ag, Secretary Perdue, actually tapped into a fund that still exists today to make sure that these food programs would go forward, that people would not go hungry. And it was until about 2 or 3 weeks ago that under the Trump administration, there was a document on the Ag website that justified using this money. $5 billion exists in one fund, $23 billion in another fund that can go to food programs. That's fact. No one can refute that. And when Republicans say there's not enough money, President Trump is shaking down the Department of Justice for $230 million for him. He bought Kristi Noem 2 jets, almost $180 million, sent $30 billion to Argentina. There's enough money, and there's enough money for these programs, for food programs. Now, with that being said, everyone needs to be working together. President Donald Trump is flying across the world. I hope he gets back soon. I hope he invites leaders back to the White House and gets them in the room. Last night, Leader Thune said that he wants to start talking to Democrats. Well, the shutdown's already been going on too long. House Republicans have been home for 6 weeks or so. Enough's enough. Start talking. The talking should have started a long time ago. This is not a surprise to anyone. And so, look, I'm on the side that says get everyone in a room. And like our good governor from New Mexico used to say, don't let them out of the bar until they come up with a solution.
Well, we talked about the bills that are out there, and we talked about at least some level of bipartisanship. Do you believe, Senator, right now, Congress is legitimately any closer to solving this mess than you were, say, 24 or 48 hours ago?
Well, look, specifically to food programs, I have a piece of legislation that's been introduced that has every Democratic colleague as a co-sponsor. I've co-sponsored Senator Hawley's as well, a Republican colleague from Missouri who has 30 co-sponsors or so, 15 Republicans, 15 Democrats. All we need is 13 Republicans to pass a bill. It's now the Republican leadership on the floor that's stopping those food programs from going forward. But in the end, all President Trump has to do is follow the law and allow these programs to go forward. He can make that decision right now, wherever he may be. He can make it right now and those food programs go forward. With that being said, I know Democrats speaking to Republicans and Republicans speaking to Democrats. I'm not aware of any Republican leadership inviting anyone into a room, and that needs to stop. With majorities and with power comes responsibilities. With holding the gavel in the legislative branch of government comes responsibility. Be adults. Bring people in instead of finger pointing and acting up when the cameras are on. Start talking to the American people and make sure your constituents are not going to feel the pain.
Where Congress can't get this done, at least there's an effort, and New Mexico is one of the states who's pushing this to go to the courts to try to make sure in a lawsuit that they're arguing just today, as you know, they want to force the Trump administration to use an emergency contingency fund to at least keep those SNAP benefits going. I wonder what you're hearing about that. Do you think you have a good chance with this lawsuit? Could it at least be a stopgap?
Chris, I'm hoping that these arguments are going well. I've not heard anything as these are currently ongoing as well. But to me, the law is clear. And the law was supported by the current Secretary at Agriculture, Brooke Rollins. It was supported by President Donald Trump because it was on their website. And the USDA actually tapped $1 billion of the dollars earlier this year to pay for the administration of the SNAP program. So they've already used the money. And by the way, again, $5 billion in one fund, $23 billion in another. The money is there. I also want to applaud the governor of New Mexico and our Democratic and Republican colleagues in New Mexico in the House and Senate, because they're also having conversations to make sure that people are going to get money so that they don't go hungry. So I applaud states. It's why I've included in my legislation that states should be able to be reimbursed, that tribes should be able to be reimbursed if they do this. And by the way, my legislation did not leave out Puerto Rico. We should not forget about our brothers and sisters all around America and make sure that we do this correctly.
So I do want to ask you about the governor of New Mexico. So the state providing $30 million worth of funds, but even she acknowledges that's not going to be enough. And I'm hearing all kinds of different expectations about how long this may go on, and if even some of these stopgaps that states are putting in place will last long enough. What's your thought right now, Senator?
People around America don't understand why all this nonsense is taking place, especially those that depend on these programs that are hardworking families. A lot of moms out there trying to raise their families that are being told, sorry, you're not going to be able to go buy groceries or put food on the table. I mean, what does that mean in the richest country in the world, in the United States of America? Now, while the governor was clear that these funds will only cover a couple of weeks, I appreciate the governor's leadership, Governor Michelle Luján Grisham, and again, the state legislature for coming together to say, look, we can do this now. Let's have a conversation about having to come in to appropriate more funds. But none of this should be needed. All that needs to happen right now is President Trump needs to tell Secretary Rollins, you did the wrong thing here in lying to the American people, saying that we're not allowed to do it. Use the money Congress appropriated. And President Trump, you know that this money exists because you used it during your first term. Just pray on it, man. Think about the people that you're hurting. Do the right thing. I'm hopeful. Where I come from, families have disagreements, but they're still family. You look out for each other. And that's what we need to do as a big family in the United States of America. Do the right thing here. Get this money out. Make sure that people are not going to go hungry. And then to all of my colleagues in Congress, including myself, bring us into a room. Let's figure this out. And let's do the right thing for the American people.
Well, let me play for you what one of your Republican colleagues, Senator Roger Marshall, said about the Democrats, your approach to this shutdown. Here it is.
How do you choose funding SNAP over paying the military, over paying the air traffic control? You know, it's like, which one of your children do you love the most? I think by the November election next year, people will have forgotten about this shutdown. What they're going to remember is the borders are secure, their families are safe again, that the price of gas is down to $2.50 a gallon, that grocery prices are stable. That's what they're going to remember.
So he says, I think by November election next year, people will have forgotten about this shutdown. What do you think voters will remember?
You know, look, I know Senator Marshall. He's a friend. I completely disagree with that nonsense. You go talk to a family that says that they're not going to be able to feed their kids and ask them if they're going to forget about it. They're not going to forget about this. And by the way, Senator, if you're worried about food prices, tell President Trump to cut the nonsense with these tariffs that are making everything more expensive, that's making everything more expensive for farmers and ranchers. President Trump cut a program that food was supposed to go to food banks, and now he nominated the guy to be like a undersecretary at USDA. Yesterday, when Senator Warnock asked him a question about a letter that he wrote to Senator Warnock that this nominee called this food bank program a slush fund, the guy said, I don't remember ever saying that. Senator Warnock had the letter and said, well, here it is if you need to see it. I mean, enough with the games. I think Roger has a good heart. I know he cares about his constituents, but maybe this weekend he needs to go home and go stand in one of those food lines and serve some of those families some food and ask them if they're going to forget about not being able to feed their families. Enough with the garbage. We're better than that here. Let's figure out this problem. Stop the finger pointing. Let's get it done.
I hear the emotion in your voice, Senator, and I do know that no state has more people who depend on food stamps than your state, New Mexico. On a scale of 1 to 10, because the president talked about this in his meeting with President Xi, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your level of frustration and maybe even anger right now?
Look, I'm frustrated, but the folks that I'm learning from are people back home. It's not just Democrats or Republicans or folks that are independent or libertarian. These are New Mexicans. These are Americans. People don't understand why this nonsense is happening. I just don't understand it. I'm beside myself. But in all of this, my father, may he rest in peace, he reminded me when I was elected to the Senate and to the House, every vote you take impacts a person. There's families behind everything that you do and everything that you say. Do not forget about them. Let's make sure that we just get this done. And so, look, bring everyone together. There's folks across the country right now that are already getting notices on health insurance premiums. Chris, you may know this. Some of the folks watching might remember this. I survived a stroke 3 years ago. I know the difference of being able to get to a doctor or not. It's the difference between life and death or being able to recover like I was blessed to have done. That only happens if you can go see the doctor or if you have the ability to pay for those bills, because having a stroke or some other challenge should not mean that you're going to lose your home as well. That's what's going to happen to a bunch of folks. People not being able to afford health insurance, get to a doctor, rural health clinics that might close in parts of the country, people not getting food. Come on. We're better than this in America. I know we can do better. And by the way, the United States Senate is in session. I've been in committees marking up pieces of legislation. Yesterday, the Senate passed pieces of legislation off the Senate floor. We're here working in committee and on the floor. There's nothing stopping us from getting in a room and figuring this out. I hope the leadership does this, everybody involved. Let's do better by the American people. Let's solve this challenge. Let's make sure health insurance premiums aren't going to double or triple or skyrocket, and open the government. We can do it all at once.
Senator Ben Ray Luján, thank you for